Sees Durant coming. He knows he's going to have resistance. Punch it through, young fella. Wow.
One and done. Rebounded by PJ. Here come the Hornets. What a reverse. Terry Rozier counted and a foul.
An outlet pass. Look at that bullet by Devontae Rozier. Ooh. Hang, twist, spin it off the glass.
Gives it up to Bridges. 4 to shoot. Caleb.
There's the blow by. Oh my goodness, how hard did he throw it in?
A perfect
he took
10.
off the dotted line.
Oh,
come on. Nice hard drives, drawing the D.
Powell, no. Hornets still the chance. Terry's going to have to fire. 40-footer. Go! You betcha! T-Row, come alive! In the final stages of our second quarter, he finishes with 14 points in 24 minutes. Hornets riding a magic carpet into that locker room, feeling good about themselves. Only down a pair in Tampa. We'll take a timeout. We come back. Ashley Shamity chomping at the bit. She'll drive the bus. Stick around. The floor.
8.7, plenty of time. No need to rush or be in a hurry.
Here's Hayward. Clean look, top of the key. Guarded by Fournier. Gordon gets inside. Score it! Gordon Hayward, how do you do?
You talk about scoring and leaving almost nothing on the clock. Will not be denied. The crossover. Strong left hand. Look at him protect that ball and clear it before Birch could get over. Ha.
Alley-oop. Oh my! LaMelo High smiles!
Off a made field goal. Take it out, run it right back down, and Miles playing above the rim. Oh, Turner, or excuse me, Bridges, our guy, playing above the rim, throwing it down.
Devontae Graham back into the game. Hornets are going to play small. Milwaukee has 5 reserves in the... Oh, my goodness! Miles Bridges!
And look at LaMelo set it up perfectly. Wow, look at that. I mean, he caught it and then looked at the rim. Watch his eyes. Look at his eyes right here. All right, I got the ball. Where's the rim? Oh, my. Yeah, that's impressive, young fella, for Miles Bridges.
Full length pass. And it'll count if it goes. Hey! How about that from bucket to end the corner?
I'm doing this on purpose. Right there. How about the awareness of the rookie?
Oh, glorious. Here at the end of the first.
Just trying to confuse with all the cutting away. Oh!
That'll go! Score it from half court. Terry Rozier. And the Hornets, maybe that'll get them going.
Yeah. It won't go in unless you give it a try. Rozier's been trying a lot, and it's been going in a lot.
So the Hornets, they get a 3 at the buzzer, and they trail the Warriors by a pair. All right, Hornets don't have a timeout. Chance to win it right here. Rozier, gonna have to put something up. Yes! Terry Rozier, how do you do?
Look at this. The Warriors wanted a carry. He just loses the handle. Degree of difficulty off the charts.
Terry Rozier, a 20-point fourth quarter. He scores the last 10 for the Hornets.
He almost dribbled that off his knee. Regains control and rattles it home. His 8th triple. Well, that's a 2. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, splitting hairs, partner. Terry Rozier, 34 more points, and his first game winner as a Hornet.
Yeah, show me my opponent. Top spot, I want it. My grind, I'm on it. Can't stop, keep going. Show me my opponent. Top spot, I want it. My grind, I'm on it.
Oh, do that. Oh, Cody Zeller. Devontae finds Miles. Got it. Young blocked from behind by PJ. Paisley with some explosion, blocked from behind by Beyond. Hey, PJ Washington. LaMelo. Hayward. Got it. Devontae slices in and scores. Monk with the left hand, feathering. Cody to Cody! A Cody connection! Gordon gets inside! Scoring! Gordon to Hayward!
This is my
Oh! Here come the Hornets. Rozier ahead of the pack.
Hello.
Hey guys,
Hey, what's going on?
what's happening? Welcome,
Hey.
everyone tuned in to our live Hornets schedule release party, or after parties we're calling, because they've just been put out there. So we're going to give our immediate, instant breakdown of your Southeast Division leading Charlotte Hornets second half schedule. I'm Sam Farber, and it is a pleasure and a privilege to be joined by Ashley Shamity. Ashley Shamity from Fox Sports Southeast. Guys, it's great to be with you. It's always exciting when something like this happens because you get to start planning what the next couple of months are going to look like for us working and for our favorite team to be out there on the hardwood. We're going to put the schedule out there, but just before we post it for everyone, your thoughts on the excitement of a second half schedule finally being put to paper.
Ashley, ladies first.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously the first half there weren't very many breaks. It's been a lot of games in just a condensed amount of time. The second half is the same, especially with postponements. I know they had to fit in a lot of games and like I said, in a small amount of time. So it is going to be a wild ride from the start. Right after All-Star break, they have a couple home games, but then they're going to go back to the West Coast. I think that's probably going to be one of the toughest stretches. There's on the schedule I'm looking at, it's red for away games and blue for home games. There's a lot of red games to start, so a lot of time on the road, which, you know, is probably always a little bit more difficult not being in your hometown. But then they'll finish it off in May with a lot of home games, so that'll be good just for the Hornets to make that final push to hopefully the postseason. So it's gonna be a lot of games, but it's kind of what they've already been doing. So I don't think too much with that, but definitely a high difficulty of teams right out the bat for after All-Star.
Yeah, I agree. I think the first half kind of prepares you for how difficult the second half is going to be. Second game tonight of a brutal 6-game West Coast trip. I didn't think you could get a tougher trip. And then I look at the schedule. When you come out of the break, you got 3 at home, and then you go right back out west: Denver, LA, Lakers, Clippers, San Antonio, Houston. That is a brutal stretch. And you come home for 2, and you go right back out for 5 or 6 more on the road. So hey, if you can just keep afloat until after the April 9th game against Milwaukee, 14 of your last 21 are at Spectrum Center. It looks like some fans may be back in the building. That'll be huge. Players around the league are talking about how different it is when you play in venues where fans are actually there and how big an advantage that is. So I think if we could somehow get some fans back in for the home stretch toward the end of the second half, would be a huge advantage there. I know the players would love that, to get that energy in the building. But you just have to take it. I know it's the cliche, one game at a time, because you don't know if something will break out. The Hornets lost a couple of games last week. Were able to get some rest, so that could happen again at some point. So you just got to take it as it comes. And I think the first half has kind of prepared you for what you're going to see in the second half.
You mentioned fans. Speaking of fans, we encourage you all to leave your questions or comments in the chat. We'll try and address some of those throughout the show. And we'll also have a special guest coming up in a couple of minutes here. Mitch Kupchak will be joining Ashley to talk a little bit about the schedule, about the first half, and the upcoming future, near future, and long-term future maybe for the Hornets as well. Going to the schedule month by month, the word that comes to mind for the remainder of March is maybe brutal. It's a lot of road games, and as you mentioned, Dell, the West Coast, I looking at the schedule, I look at March as survive.
Yeah.
The Hornets so far this season through tough stretches of the schedule, easier maybe, home, road. There's never been a 10-game span where they've won more or lost more than 6 games, no matter where you put the dividing line, any 10-game stretch. So this team doesn't seem to mind too much whether they're playing difficult opponents or not so difficult opponents. They seem to be pretty even keel no matter what. But this will be a serious test to see if they can survive this March coming out of the All-Star break and keep themselves in a position to advance later on down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're showing the March schedule there with the end of March. You play Washington, but you stay out on the road. You got Brooklyn, Indiana, Boston, OKC, and at Milwaukee. So again, yeah, it's a brutal. But Hornets, they don't mind playing on the road. I think they play the same way. They have that great road energy, that tenacity that it takes. Coach Brago's done a fabulous job, I think, preparing his team for each and every game with all the circumstances that surrounds trying to get through a season this year. So the guys, they got a great chemistry. The locker room is great. They push each other. They play for each other. They hold each other accountable. And that's going to be important if you want to stay afloat and get through, survive this stretch late March, early April, so that you can really make a move in May.
And Ashley, I would call May advance. If March is survive, May is advance. If you're in position, I think it's a wide receiver football term. If you're even, you're leaving. If you're even with someone for 8th or 9th place to get in the playoffs and you're Charlotte and you look at that May schedule, 7 of 10 games are at home. Right now, the combined record of all the teams that they're playing is about 30 games below 500. So a lot of teams that have not performed to this point. There's only 2 games against teams that have winning records at this stage. Now, a lot can change between now and then, obviously. But looking at that schedule, if the Hornets are in a playoff position or anywhere close to one, you got to feel good about how it lines up.
Absolutely. And I think it's going to be so important to, just stay healthy and hopefully keep their bodies right and their energy, because I know that's something that Coach Brago has really talked about thus far, just with so many games in such a short amount of time, just keeping the guys as healthy and, physically, mentally just in it as possible. So with such a brutal March and a little bit into April, you just want them to be their best and full selves so that, like you mentioned, in May, they can hopefully get a bunch of wins at home, hopefully in front of some fans, fingers crossed. And then, like you mentioned, make that last playoff or push for the playoffs into the postseason. So I just think it's going to be so important to just try and stay. Obviously things happen and things have already happened, but just stay as healthy as possible. And hopefully they can make it to May with a full roster and can get some of those wins. But I think you're absolutely right. It's survive and then it's advance. So that could be their motto going into the second half.
Sounds good. Well, we, again, invite any questions or comments you have. You're all looking at this schedule fresh, just like all of us are. So if you have any comments, thoughts on it, games you're looking forward to, matchups for LaMelo, Gordon Hayward, and company, feel free to put them in the comments and we'll get to them throughout the show. But coming up next, a special one-on-one conversation, Ashley Shamity and Mitch Kupchak.
The Hornets, they're not going into games scared of anyone else.
Cody darts to the basket. Oh, he threw it on the free.
We get along so well. We always like to play, joke around, laugh.
Fade away, the buzzer, got it!
When you out there having fun playing the game, you play different.
Got it! Oh, what a ball game, Malik Monk! Hey, man, let's do this work.
Mitch, hi, can you hear me?
Ashley, yes, I can.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. Here with General Manager Mitch Kupchak. Exciting day. The second half of the Hornets schedule was just released. And so just from you browsing over it, I just want to know your initial thoughts on what the second half looks like.
Well, listening to your comments and Dell's comments, I really don't have much to add. I think you hit all the bases. Yes, there's a lot of challenging parts to our schedule, but all the NBA teams have to deal with the same thing. And some, in fact, because of cancellations, they might even have a tighter schedule than we do. The one point, your point about, staying injury free is probably most important. And Dell made a good point that I didn't really think about, right? If we could hang on till the end of the season and we do get some fans in the building, then maybe, we'll get a little bit of a boost with our fans in the building. But overall, I think you guys covered the bases. We don't get too wrapped up in the schedule. It kind of go game to game. And, once you get through tonight, then we'll look at the game after tonight. And that's just how it goes.
I mean, as much as it is a cliche, it is one game at a time. So I just want to ask you, as we're approaching the All-Star break, just a couple more games left here out on the West Coast. What are your thoughts, and how would you kind of rate how this young team has done this first half of the season?
Well, I think there's a little bit more excitement, than we anticipated. With our pick, we didn't know, how much he'd be able to contribute at first. And certainly, he's made a great contribution. And I think he's created a little bit of excitement. I think that's good. Having said, Gordon, right, it's been a great addition, an excellent player. He's been as good as we thought. Terry probably has exceeded our expectations. If there's a piece of wood nearby, I'd knock on it right now. Maybe after the broadcast I will. But he's been really good. So those are the good things. Having said all that, we're still a couple of games below 500, right? So, there are some good things to feel positive about. But, we are trying to win games. We are trying to develop players and get in a position where we can get in the playoffs, whereas this year or next year. And not only get in, but, win a series and advance in the playoffs. That's, what we want to do. It's not about getting in the playoffs and losing. It's about getting in and advancing.
Absolutely. And fans, if you're joining, feel free to submit questions for Mitch and for the rest of this broadcast here. But Mitch, I just want to ask you, you mentioned a little bit just about LaMelo, how productive he's been, Gordon and Terry as well. Out of those, or if it's something else, what has kind of surprised you the most with a certain player or just the team as a whole in this first half of the season?
When you mention players, there's always the danger that you leave out players.
True.
I don't think stretch that those three, have really jumped out this year. I also think, Miles has really come in and given us, great energy. He was in great shape, when he entered training camp. Cody Zeller was in great shape. And then, of course, he hurt his hand and ended up missing a month, which now seems like, a year ago.
Yes, it does.
He actually had surgery and missed a month, and now he's been back for several weeks. So, and then, Jalen, has given us a boost. Of course, Devontae, still hasn't found his stride. We're hopeful that, his knee can get back to where it was, and then we can get him back. So everybody, to a great degree or to some degree, has made a contribution. I thought PJ, our game against Utah really played well, and maybe he's turning the corner. So there's a lot of positive things, and we're looking forward to more and more games. I just got back from Orlando watching our G League team play. We have some young players down there, so I thought there were some positive things down there as well.
Absolutely. And the G League, just being a part of it, I know it really, you can see it with Jalen McDaniels just in the time that he's been called up with the Hornets right now. We have one fan question that came in here for you, Mitch. It's from the Pat Attack. He asked, which is our favorite game that each of us is looking forward to, I guess, for the second half. So I know as a general manager, I'm not sure if you have favorite games, but if there is one in particular that you're looking forward to, feel free.
Probably not. Just the first win. That would be the first game back from the break.
Absolutely. Spoken like a true general manager there. I don't know if I have a favorite either, to be honest. I obviously biased. I love the home games. And so if we, have some fans as well, that's going to be amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and say the home games too. And I got one more question for you, Mitch, here. I know obviously the playoff push is something that would be wonderful for this franchise, for the city, for the organization, but just specifically for the young team. How great would it be for them to be able to experience a postseason and just with how much chemistry they all have and how they're playing and, for the coaching staff, for you guys as well, how wonderful would it be for this young team to, fingers crossed, make it to the postseason?
Well, I don't follow, too much during the preseason, what the predictions are that other people make about our team. My understanding was that they weren't very optimistic.
Right.
People that write stories or people that report. And I know our players from time to time probably see that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could put ourselves in a position, to get into the playoff, of course, this year they have an expanded methodology to get into the playoffs. It's no longer just the top 8. It would be a nice thing for them to see that, don't pay attention to outside distractions. It's all about what happens in the locker room, on the practice court. I think that would be a good thing for our organization. But, we don't want to, as I mentioned, just get into the playoff spot or get into the playoff to the playoffs and kind of mortgage going forward to do that. We're trying to build something that we can sustain. And yes, getting into the playoffs, but we want to advance, right? We want to win a round. We want to get into the next round. We want to win that round. And then it gets to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. We are looking forward to it. This team's so exciting to watch. But like you mentioned, we have tonight's game and the rest of this road trip before the All-Star break. So before we can even think about the second half. Well, Mitch, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And best of luck tonight, hoping for that Hornets win.
Ashley, thank you.
Thank you so much. We will be back with more of this schedule release after party in a minute.
The new Game Day Hub on the Hornets app is your place for exclusive content, bringing the game day experience on and off the court straight to the palm of your hand. Test your knowledge and win in our fan polls, engage in our virtual dance camp, and take time to watch our exclusive halftime performances. You can also use the Game Day Hub for multiple game day giveaways, including signed merch, great gear, and a $1,000 weekly DraftKings prize pool. Keep up to date with your Hornets in the new Game Day Hub on the Hornets app today.
All right, and we're back now. We've got 4 boxes on our screen here. Ashley, great job there talking to Mitch. Sam Farber back here. We've got another Sam that way, Sam Purley from Hornets.com, and right above me, Diana Biffle, who manages the Hornets social media site. So time to have a little square table, if you will, discussion about how the season has gone so far, as well as the schedule. Again, feel free to continue to throw your questions at us. We'll do our best to get to them. If you have a favorite game you are looking forward to in the second half, please let us know. But as we look ahead, I thought one thing that is very revealing, Ashley, about your conversation with Mitch, and we hear it all the time, the focus of this team is on winning while developing. It's not on developing instead of winning. It's not winning at the expense of developing players. It's doing the two in tandem, which is not always the strategy every franchise takes if they're trying to collect young talent and want to make sure they're at a certain draft position. Maybe they sacrifice winning, and other franchises might sacrifice the development of young talent to stay in the playoffs a little bit longer. So let's throw it to Sam, you first. Your thoughts on what Mitch had to say and how the strategy is going in terms of both trying to win and make it into the postseason for the first time in a handful of seasons while continuing to develop players like P.J. Washington, Miles Bridges, and LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough balance sometimes because at the end of the day, like you said, like Mitch said, it is all about winning games, but the guys have to get better as you do it, and you don't want to, put one ahead of the other. You got to kind of balance them both times, and it's a tough thing for coach to manage. I think JB had some really good comments on it recently with getting guys to buy in. And in order to develop, you have to get guys to buy in, and they buy in when they have results and those results are winning. The two are kind of intertwined a little bit. I mean, a lot, I should say. The winning, I think, and then again, learning how to win is part of the developmental process. You've seen it with this team this year. Really, really good. They're a top 10 team in clutch time. Learning how to finish games, that's part of winning. So developing isn't just, I'm raising my three-point shot, or I'm getting a better rebounder, or getting a better passer. It's learning how to execute at the end of games and learning how to get wins, like you saw in that Golden State game, like you saw in the Minnesota game for sure. So it's definitely a challenge, but I think the team's done a great job with it this year thus far.
Diana, another thing Mitch touched on was the impact of Gordon Hayward on this team. We just had the All-Star rosters announced. Unfortunately, no Hornets made it, but the fact that Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier made serious pushes for consideration, I think is a huge step forward when you consider the fact that the franchise, based off the so-called experts out there, did not give a whole lot of credit to the Hornets at the start of the season.
Absolutely. It's been so much fun just to see the excitement rising around our team. I see that, firsthand, as I'm sure all of you do on our social media channels and beyond. Just people, I like to say, a very non-scientific way of seeing the enthusiasm around the team is the use of emojis, and the number of fire emojis this season is off the charts. But it's been really, really fun. A lot of belief in our team. And like Sam said, there's buy-in on the court. There's buy-in off the court too. These, fans are really psyched and excited about what we've got kind of growing here.
Ashley, I don't know that anyone has generated more excitement around this team than LaMelo Ball. He is the odds-on favorite, I would say, right now to be Rookie of the Year. There are certainly some other talented rookies out there that will give him a push. We'll see Tyrese Halliburton later on this road trip from Sacramento seems to be the other favorite. But looking, not assuming he's going to get the award, I think it's interesting to look at what kind of Rookie of the Year could he be? Because there's different categories. Sometimes it is a player who accumulates a lot of great stats, as LaMelo is, but isn't necessarily viewed as someone who is going to transform a franchise. Think, Michael Carter-Williams, Malcolm Brogdon, they're excellent players. They're longtime starters in the league. They're not going anywhere, but they're not necessarily seen as the face of a franchise the same way that a Luka Doncic or a Ja Morant might be. So I know what I think. What do you think? What kind of Rookie of the Year potentially is LaMelo?
Absolutely. And I think besides the stats, because they speak for themselves, just the type of player and the type of teammate and how coachable he is, I think that speaks even more volume sometimes than just the stats and the box score at the end of the game, because I know how important that is, obviously, and that can transform a franchise and an organization and a team. But all you hear from all the players is how wonderful of a teammate he is. And Coach Borrego talking about how much energy he always brings and how wonderful he is to be around. And that is literally the consensus overall. So I think when you have that, in addition to all the stats that he's bringing, that is something that can transform an organization, because it's not just what he can physically bring with his basketball skills and knowledge and his IQ, but it's everything else that he brings to the team as well. And it's just such an overall consensus from every teammate that I talk to and every coach that I talk to about him, just how much of a joy he is to be around. So I think that is maybe just as important in some of these cases when you talk about long-term and how he can change a franchise. So that's my personal opinion.
Well, before we go to the final segment of this Hornets schedule release after party, we've got a handful of games left here on the first half. We've now seen the second half schedule. I'm going to go to everyone what you're looking most forward to, and you can put it in whatever context you want. It could be tonight's game against the Phoenix Suns, could be for the rest of the first half, could be for the second half schedule. It could be, what you're going to do during the All-Star break when we finally get more than a day off to breathe. Let's start right above me right now. Sam Perley, what are you most looking forward to with the remainder of the Hornets schedule?
Well, I really like Mitch's answer when he was on here. He said, I'm just looking forward to the next game. And that next game, I guess tonight, is against Phoenix. But, there's a lot of basketball coming up. I think there's only one little stretch where we don't play either back-to-backs or every other day. So Gonna be a lot of basketball. I'm looking for this team just to kind of keep finding a groove, keep competing. I think you got a lot of good tests coming up, and we use the term brutal and rough and stuff like that, but everyone's got to play these games. Every Eastern Conference team's going to play the same slate of games, same locations, stuff like that. So, and that's how you get better. You get better by testing yourself on long road trips, playing really, really good teams. And I think I'm really looking forward to maybe when the weather gets a little bit nicer. Those late April, early May games, a lot of home games at Charlotte. Hopefully, like we said, we talk a little bit more fans. I think that's the part I'm really looking forward to, looking at the second half schedule.
Let's go around the square. So, Ashley, you're next.
It's definitely hard to pinpoint, I think, one certain stretch. Obviously, the home games are fun for all of us, biased, because we can actually watch them play in the arena. So I love that. I think May is going to be such a good push because, the Hornets, I just feel like if they keep just trudging along kind of how they are, then in May it could be a really important month and a really important couple weeks to just hopefully make that final push. So I think May is going to be really exciting, but I do feel like the Hornets played well on the road, and I feel like they play well against tough opponents. So as, like we mentioned, brutal and some of those words that it comes to when it comes to this schedule, I think the Hornets have a different mindset when they probably see teams like the Lakers, the Clippers, Denver, some of those tough teams, Utah, just like what they played. But I think they maybe come in with a different mindset as well, knowing how tough their opponent could be tonight. So I think they play well against them. And so I am looking forward to the home games, and I'm just looking forward to more Hornets wins.
Diana, you're up.
I'm up next. Well, first of all, I completely agree with Ashley. I think it's actually, maybe some people might be a little nervous about playing these really well-performing teams, but I get super excited about those games because our team has shown that they can stand up to the challenge, that they go in with a strong belief that we could beat any team. And you really never know what's going to happen in a Hornets game. So it stays exciting. Every single game, I know we could come out of this with a win, and that's really awesome. So, and as you mentioned, the home games are always a blast, of course, because we get to be there and experience it in the arena. And we love to be here in Buzz City, but also I'm interested to play Boston, to have Gordon and Terry play their former team. I think that could be a really interesting, fun matchup.
Most definitely could. Yeah, there's some teams that we haven't seen just yet, including Boston, including the Clippers and the Lakers. So that'll be exciting. Before we go, Trent Tompkins with a question. What was the expectation coming into a season with a lottery pick, acquisition of Gordon Hayward, and still dealing with COVID protocols? And how do you evaluate the team's progress currently? Trent, thanks for the question. It's a big one. Who wants to tackle this one? The expectation for the team, I guess nationally, they had the teams pegged somewhere between 24 to 28 wins is where most of the different expert sites had the Hornets. And right now they're on pace for something closer to 35 wins. So certainly exceeding them there. Let's go back the other way. Diana, how's the team done meeting expectations?
I think we've really exceeded expectations. I think to some degree, no one really knew what to expect coming into this season, not just for the Hornets, but for any NBA team, just because of the long break that we had for those of us not in the bubble. And then the playoff teams had a very short break. So it was a very interesting beginning of the season. The training was different. We didn't have a very long training camp. So there was a very, abbreviated time for our rookies to get up to speed with things, to get to know the team, for there to be some chemistry. So expectations were kind of up in the air. We were all just pumped to have basketball back. And then on top of that, for Gordon to come in and mesh with the team so well, so quickly, and to be so reliable, and then for LaMelo to do the same and to bring this energy and excitement and light to the court and to the team, I couldn't have asked for anything better. And we've already had some really awesome big moments, some great posters. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. We've got a Terry Rozier poster, a Cody Zeller. So just a whole lot of fun. So I'm happy with where we're at.
Ashley, how's the team done meeting expectations?
So I kind of read his comment as what were the expectations going into this season. And I'm with Diana there. I don't think there were any, just because nobody knew what was going to happen with the COVID protocols and just how the team, even now, you just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what games are going to be postponed. You don't know who's going to be healthy, who's not. I mean, it's just, there really aren't any expectations, but I think that's been wonderful. And in terms of every player, that's where it's been wonderful, because Gordon Hayward, it could have been a chance for him to revitalize his career, or, maybe gone the other way. And I think he has gone and revitalized his career and just provided just a second spark in something that I'm sure people knew that he could do, but just needed to be healthy and needed another opportunity and maybe a fresh start, fresh city. And I think that's exactly what he did. So I think coming in with maybe not as big of expectations has everyone, I mean, it's just exceeded expectations in that sense. And then when I was talking to Mitch, I love that he, doesn't want to leave any player out, and he really didn't. He touched on all of them, because it's not just Gordon Hayward having a phenomenal year, Terry Rozier doing wonderful things, LaMelo performing better than people probably thought, but Miles Bridges coming off the bench, and the connection between Miles and LaMelo. And that's something that's been wonderfully surprising as well. And just, having those little surprises like that. He even mentioned PJ, he was out for 10 days and just came back for the last 2 and has really just shown what he is capable of. So I think these little surprises here and then have definitely exceeded expectations, at least for me, for this year.
Yeah, one thing about all those players you mentioned, I don't think they've all played an entire game together yet. I think someone has always been hurt. So maybe the biggest expectation is that the best is yet to come. Sam Purley, what are your expectations?
Well, I'm going to go a little bit of a different route. I'm not saying there were necessarily no expectations, in the sense that I just think it was sort of unknown. Nobody really knew what to expect. But I think internally, the staff and the players and the coaches, the expectations were they were going to take another step forward. You saw how well they were playing after the All-Star break last year. Everyone remembers the win in Miami, going toe-to-toe with a lot of good teams there down the stretch. And then obviously the season shut down and there was 9 months of not doing anything. So that could really derail development, but it hasn't necessarily done that. And the expectations are to take another step internally. You're adding external pieces in LaMelo Ball and Gordon, obviously the 2 big ones. And then internally, everyone else has to take another step forward. Terry Rozier is taking a step forward. Malik Monk is taking a step forward. Miles Bridges is taking a step forward. Like I said, everybody seems to have taken a step forward and found a really, really good role for them. Miles as a, energetic guy off the bench. PJ, small ball 5 at times. Everybody seems to have found their way to kind of benefit this team right now. And I think that's been the expectation, to take another step forward this year. Players, coaches, staff, organization, so you can kind of keep building this thing, even with the craziness of the last year or so, not playing for 9 months, like we said.
Before we go to our final segment, Diana, I think one thing we've noticed from the team so far is that there's a serious buzz. I mean, we talk about wanting fans in the building, and we can feel that they're clamoring to get in to see this team, and we feel it primarily through social media, because that's all we really have right now. Ashley, I think we have on the schedule here, you guys talking about what that impact has been.
Diana, do you want to go with the social media impact?
Yeah, no, it's been huge. Like I said, from kind of an anecdotal standpoint, it's been awesome just seeing the comments from fans, just seeing the overall enthusiasm and optimism towards the team. And, from an organizational standpoint, as a social media manager, seeing the rise in our numbers has been insane as well. So yes, we're seeing a lot of those fire emojis, but we're also seeing huge increases in our impressions and our engagements across the board and our video views. So fans really just wanting to see more and more of this team, which I think, it's a combination of how fun this team is to watch and how exciting they are. And also the, desire to just watch basketball, because no one has been in the arena yet this season. So we've been really proud and excited to share this content with fans, and even, go further behind the scenes than we ever have with our Real Access series that's on Hornets.com, just doing everything we can to give fans that basketball experience without being in the arena. And I think fans have been really responding to that, and I've been really stoked.
And I do want to add one thing on that as well. It's so funny because I feel like I get a lot of questions about, obviously, LaMelo, Gordon, just the different players on the team, but also about our broadcast crew, specifically Eric Collins. I feel like people are now finally realizing how wonderful he is of an announcer and a play-by-play guy.
Yes.
Because And I'm just like, where have you guys been? He has been this energetic the entire time. And now people are really noticing it. And I think it's actually hilarious. But
Yes.
I'm loving the love that Dell and Eric and just the entire crew is getting as well.
Absolutely. That's a great point. Eric Collins, I think he's probably got his own fan group going on.
He does. He does.
He's got a whole posse of his own. And it's funny because he's not even on social media.
Yeah.
So.
Number one question one of the top 5 questions I get is, how does Eric have a Twitter? What's his Twitter? How can I reach him? I'm like, does not have one, but I'll let you know what you said about him. So yeah, it's been wonderful though. It's been so great. And I like you mentioned, Diana, it's just wonderful to see the excitement surrounding this team and the organization.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are new to Eric Collins, just check out our highlights. Just watch them on YouTube. You'll hear all of it. It's absolutely amazing. Get you out of your seat every time.
It's been nice. The players have noticed it too. And, without any fans, they do say that hearing him scream or whatever it may be, yell with excitement has really helped them in home game situations. So we of course miss the fans, but hopefully we're holding it down until they get back in.
For sure.
Most definitely. And especially on road games, we can kind of shout at each other from across the arena. Like, good one, Eric. That was another winner. He's certainly the best. The fan club is strong. We're going to make T-shirts. We're very lucky to have Eric be the soundtrack to so many great moments so far, and hopefully so many more in the future. We're going to take one more break, come back, and give our final thoughts as we head into the remainder of the first half and the second half schedule finally announced for your Charlotte Hornets.
LaMelo, straight on look. Got it! Oh, the kid's got game. Oh, my goodness! Miles! Oh, my goodness! Miles Bridges! Oh, a glorious alley-oop!
Those statement jerseys are pretty good.
Oh my gosh, those are so nice. And Sam, you have taken the reins for this after party here. So I'm gonna ask the questions for you because we want to know your answers as well. And just talking about this first half of the season, what the Hornets have done thus far. We're almost to the All-Star break, and of course, we're all talking about the second half schedule being released. So I want to ask you, Sam, what are your thoughts about the second half of the schedule? I know we've all touched on little things here and there, but just overall, are you excited? Are you nervous? What are you feeling?
I'm really excited. I think that, there's certainly some challenges whenever that West Coast trip was going to come on, knowing that both the Clippers and the Lakers were going to be a part of it, given how good those teams are, that wherever that fell in the schedule, that would be a difficult part. But so far this season, like I said earlier, any 10-game stretch you slice, no matter where you put the cut lines, the team is no worse than 4-6 and no better than 6-4. So they've been pretty even keel throughout the season. Certainly some high moments and some lower marks due to injuries at certain points. But I think if this team can sustain that and get to May with a really favorable schedule, a lot of home games ahead of them, I think this shapes up very well for Charlotte.
What I'm hoping that happens is because it's a pretty young team, hoping by the time we get to May, they'll have that second boost of energy and other teams will be tired and they can exploit that and hopefully bring a little bit more oomph into the games and get the wins there at the end is what I'm hoping for. What about your, talking about these different stretches of games, is there one in particular that you've maybe circled as obviously when they go back out to the West Coast, but what about one that, I don't know, maybe you are looking forward to seeing the Hornets compete against? Because like Sam Purley was mentioning, just having a challenge. This is what this season's all about. This is what the game is all about. We're all playing the same teams. But for the Hornets specifically, are there any certain stretches where you're kind of excited to see how they play against a challenging squad?
Well, against challenging squads, I think, the schedule in April where they're going to welcome in the Lakers will be exciting. Really, the last homestand in May, that last week, you're going to have 3 games in a row where the team welcomes in Lonzo Ball and the Pelicans, and LaMelo Lonzo game 1 was a lot of fun. That one should be good as well towards the end of the season. The Denver Nuggets coming to town, that's a challenging game as well. And then the Clippers, that could also be one that you look at. But, really there's just so many great matchups for this team. And I'm just looking forward to having meaningful basketball all the way through the season. I think that's the most important thing for this young team. Anyone who wants to see LaMelo and company develop to their fullest potential, you want to see them playing meaningful games all the way through the season, then hopefully into the play-in or just straight into the postseason.
Absolutely. Well, Sam, thank you so much for leading the charge, for being here, and to all of our guests that were here as well, and to all the fans that were watching. We are very excited. The second half released, but got to get a win tonight in Phoenix. Got to finish out this 6-game West Coast trip strong before the All-Star break, before we can even think about the second half games. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be a wild ride, and I'm excited for it. So, but thank you. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, everyone, for joining. We appreciate it.